If we don't treat it kind of like a marriage, it is going to fall apart. And then we have what we call dental divorces, which are the 75% failure rates, and they're ugly. The person that deals with the fallout from that the most is the owner dentist, who has to ask themselves, do I even want to do this again? Or if I feel like I have to, how am I going to be able to do it right this time when I didn't do it right the last time? And candidly, that's where we come in and really help a lot of providers.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Raving Patients Podcast. As you know, I'm your host, Dr. Len Tao, and as I always do, I want to first thank the sponsors, both Dental Intelligence and the doc sites, for their continued support, allowing me to come to your inbox every Friday morning at 5 a.m. Eastern Time. I also wanted to remind everybody about my event, Supercharge Your Dental Practice. We just completed it in Scottsdale, Arizona, and we're moving it back to South Florida in Fort Lauderdale at Pier 66, September 26th and 27th, 2025. So stay tuned for information to be released on all the speakers that we're going to be bringing in. You can check out superchargeyourdentalpractice.com and learn more about those as information becomes available. Today's episode is called Shutting the Associate Revolving Door. So we're talking about how to make sure you're not fall into the trap of having a 75% failure rate when it comes to an associate, where it means only 25% of associates remain after 1 or 2 years, or within 1 year they leave. So my guest, his name is Bob Spiel, and we're going to be talking about how he helps dental practices with his company Dentist Partner Pros. Bob and I go way back, actually. Bob was a previous guest, so Bob is the lucky few that have been allowed to come back on here. So Bob and his firms, Spiel Consulting and Dentist Hiring Pros, believe ideas don't create change. Leadership and ownership at all levels does. His firms work with practices nationwide, transforming them from high stress, high turnover, and low productivity cultures to low stress, low turnovers, and much higher productivity and rewards. Bob is the author of the book, Flip Your Focus, Igniting People, Profits, and Performance Through Upside Down Leadership. So please welcome to the Raving Patients Podcast, my friend Bob Spiel. Bob, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for the invite, Len. I feel very honored that I'm one of the repeats. Maybe because the first time around I didn't do a very good job, so you give me a little slack. But
no, if you don't do a very good job, you definitely are not coming back to the podcast.
There's a trap door, in other words.
Yes, you're not welcome back if you don't do a good job. Yeah. So Bob, to begin with, why don't you expand on your bio a little bit and tell listeners and viewers kind of what you do and how you help practices?
Just like the bio says, our goal is to help practices learn how to do more in less time with less stress. Every practice, it seems, if they begin to succeed, they reach these certain, I call them plateaus. And often the plateaus happen between 5 and 10 years out, where a practice owner looks at his or herself and says, I want my life back. I'm working harder than I've ever worked. I've got a team that I may or may not like, but I need to figure out what is going on and how I can actually improve my own situation before all these negative things happen outside of the practice, let alone inside the practice. And so we work with practices at 2 levels, Len. One is to be able to help them learn how to lead, how to systematize, and how to communicate together and with patients. And then the other thing is that we found once those practices get off those plateaus and they start to realize growth again, then often practice owners look at themselves and say, I need to replicate myself. There's just too much work for me to be able to do. And so that's where Dentist Partner Pros come in. And that's our specialty at being able to find partner quality dentists that will come, stay, make money. Many of them become partners. And we're proud to say, as opposed to the 75% failure rate in the industry, which has been going on for decades, that we have an 85% success rate. And that's because of our approach is very different from the standard approach within the industry. And when it all happens well, it's magic, and the practice owners get their lives back. They're always going to be busy. That's just part of the deal in dentistry. But they do have time to be able to enjoy themselves, enjoy what their practice does, and also begin to elevate their clinical skills simultaneously. So those are our rewards when those things happen.
So I want to just kind of set the stage here. So I'm one of the fortunate few, as I mentioned prior to recording. I hired my first associate in 2017. She was up there with her fiance. Her fiance was doing a residency, And she told me that she would be there 3 years plus and then leave. And that was in 17. And she left actually during COVID. She left in June of 2020. So she was with me just about 3 years. And then I hired another associate in August of 2020 who ended up buying my practice. So I'm one of the fortunate few that hired 2 associates and had 2 associates basically long-term. I know many doctors who complain to me that they can't find an associate. They don't work hard enough. They've got this, this generation gap in terms of what the expectation of work is versus how much they're going to make. So you help facilitate, or you help basically connect a doctor who's looking for an associate with an associate who wants to work long-term in the practice and hopefully eventually become a partner.
That's exactly right.
Easy. So I wanted to make sure it's very easy understood what we're talking about here. So let's start off with some of the stuff we wanted to talk about, the speaking points that we wanted to cover. So I think one of the most important thing is, and this is something, I guess, right off the top, why is there a 75% failure rate within the industry? And why do only 25% make it, I guess, to a year?
There's a 75% failure rate in the industry because many doctors actually spend more time planning their vacation than they plan hiring their associate dentist, for one thing. And there's a phrase that I learned long ago, Len, and that is too often when we're hiring, we're actually hiring from our heart instead of our head. And what do I mean by that? That you may have a CPA, a broker, one of the sales reps from one of the, supply companies that has this dentist. They know you have a need. They've got somebody who's interested in your area, and you sit down and you have dinner. And at dinner, then you think, do I like this person or don't I like this person? And then often you start the relationship. It may or may not have a contract. It may or may not have very clear expectations. And things just start off on the wrong foot to begin with, because once again, we're using too much of our heart, not our head. And so what I learned years ago with this whole process is we've got to flip that over and use our head as much as possible through the entire process. And then our heart in the end will confirm. Because there's always this element of fit and chemistry, that you just have to know by being there in person. But what does that mean to us is that literally when we start working with a practice, or what we recommend to doctors to do, be crystal clear about who is going to fit within your practice. Get a real candid appraisal of your culture, of your team, of yourself. And know, kind of like Match.com, who is this person going to fit with? Okay? And then use that as a criteria through the entire interviewing process, the entire finding process and vetting, to know, are they meeting those criteria or not? And that allows your head to stay engaged. And it also allows you to be able to look very objectively at the different candidates that come to you. Finally, it allows you to lay the foundation for some really great conversations, but you know what you're looking for when you have those conversations, instead of it just being a general, do I like this person? Do I not like this person? Do I think we're going to fit? Instead, how do they meet the 25 criteria that we've already set in place? So that's why we've had this failure rate, is because we just have never approached it really from a systematic viewpoint of there is a system to doing this. And if you follow the system, then you get the results. The first time I even heard about this failure rate, and I'd done hiring. I mentioned in my bio that I was a hospital and surgical center CEO before I got into dentistry, which is another story in and of itself. But I'd done lots of hiring at other environments. And when you're and my good friend Linda Miles on a phone call that I just had with her, just off the top of my head, some 15 years ago, and she just dropped this number and said, Bob, there's a 75% failure rate with hiring associates. And Len, after I picked my jaw off the floor, I said, why? And she said, we don't know. It's just how it is. Well, come to find out, as I really tried to unpack this, dentistry is such a unique environment, unlike any other level of executive hire, I think, anywhere. Maybe the only thing comparable is like 2 executive chefs in the same kitchen. But other than that, because you share the same team, you're in the same space, often you're in the same office itself, you deal with the same patients. I mean, this is such an intimate relationship of 2 very high level, executive level individuals, that if we don't treat it kind of like, honestly, a marriage, it is going to fall apart. And then we have what we call dental divorces, which are the 75% failure rates, and they're ugly. And the person that deals with the fallout from that the most is the owner dentist, who has to ask themselves, do I even want to do this again? Or if I feel like I have to, how am I going to be able to do it right this time when I didn't do it right the last time? And candidly, that's where we come in and really help a lot of providers jump back into that with a high degree of confidence. But even if we are not involved, I can tell you that the process that we use, which is something others could use, works.
So someone's listening to this podcast and they say, I think it's time I want to bring in an associate. I'm curious the mindset that you expect from that owner when they come to you for assistance, because obviously there's certain things you have to ask them so you understand what type of person they're looking for. So what type of mindset should the owner doctor be having when it comes to coming to you and asking, hey, I want to bring an associate in. What do I need to know? Or what information do I have to provide to you? I'm curious what that is.
Sure. Yeah. Great question. Really, the very first mindset is, are they even ready for this? And by readiness, there are certain metrics that we look at to say, yes, is practice, to use a phrase, has a practice within a practice? And is the practice actually running well enough that if you bring somebody in, they're not just being thrown into a state of chaos? Okay. So let me just give you an example. Last week, I was in Ohio with an oral surgeon there who is definitely at a point where he needs to bring somebody else in. But the first thing that I did for him after I interviewed him and realized his numbers line up and everything looks great, but he just said, you know what, here's the reality. I feel like my practice is in a state of chaos right now. And so what we did was we came in, started working with them on a practice management level to begin with to help tame the chaos and help prepare a way for the associate to be able to come in successfully. But, to go back to your question, what type of mindset do they have to have? They have to have enough to share, and they have to be willing to share. It really has to be this viewpoint that I want to create a win-win agreement between myself and this new doctor, knowing that there's going to be an upfront investment in them. But as I invest in them in terms of mentoring and sharing patients and really developing this another part of me, so to speak, that in the end, not only is it going to be rewarding to me, it also is going to be rewarding to this associate. And to many doctors, they look at the reward in part being, I can leave, I can go on vacation, we can work Fridays now, we can alternate schedules, but I can also have somebody who's going to be part of my long-term strategy to be able to transition my practice and eventually buy me out.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, when I was the owner, I didn't have an open mindset when I brought my associate, and I had to realize I needed to have an open mindset. And that was saying because the patients are not the patients of the doctor, they're patients of the practice. And as long as I was willing to give up some of that, hey, you can see any of my patients, or any of the patients, I should say, that's when things really worked well, because I was able to take time off. She was able to, come in and give me the availability to be out of the practice, because I used to work full time and I was only working Mondays and Tuesdays, because I traveled the rest of the week. But in the beginning it was much more difficult. So I think you definitely have to have an open mindset and be willing to share, like you said. Now, I'm curious, you may not be able to answer this, or I don't want to come off any way here, but do you find that the failures are mostly because of the owner doctor or the associate doctor, or a little bit of each? Where do you see the failures happening?
It's really 50-50 is what we found. But those failures almost always have the same markings, Len. And the first is unclear expectations or unmet expectations as they enter into this. I'm amazed at how many times I hear practice owners say, we just had a handshake, for instance. And it's not that the contract that we use is very long, but it's very clear. All right. That clarity is so important. So unmet expectations, unclear expectations, values that are not in alignment with one another is also a very deep issue as they start to be able to really kind of live together, so to speak. Do they get along? And one of the other things that's fascinating is communication. The inability to communicate between two doctors really kind of gets in the way. And if they can't sit down and actually talk about what's happening at a very non-emotional level, that also starts to put wedges inside the relationship. And eventually it just splits apart and they both know it's not working out.
I also probably think it's important that the owner doctor be crystal clear who is going to be a good fit for the practice, what type of personality, whether it be female or male. I mean, I always knew I wanted a female person to come in and be the associate. I very rarely even considered a male associate because I wanted a different personality in the practice. But I'm sure that you have to have an idea of who's going to fit and who's not going to fit and be very clear about that.
You do. And that's why at the very beginning, what we do is we create the avatar of the ideal candidate. For instance, we'll interview the whole team. We interview the doctor. We do disc surveys on the doctors and other primary leaders. And we really come up with a cultural snapshot, but also a very clear indication of who is going to fit and why. And then those become our criteria. So yeah, knowing who is going to be the person, if you could come up with an ideal, what would they look like? Personally, clinically, value-wise, your chance for success goes up exponentially when you do that type of work.
And you're probably not going to check off everything on the box that you want. There's probably going to be some things that you can't get because there's no perfect person potentially.
There isn't.
So
That's right.
You have to be able to have some compromises as to what you're willing to accept and not accept. But you got to stick on
right.
the really.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I mean, I figured that. Now, I'm curious.
So how? Let me just throw out this with you though.
Yep.
How we approach that is we establish criteria that are givens, and then we have criteria that are wants. The givens are absolutes. If they don't match that, they're not a fit. Okay. The rest of the wants can be negotiated.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, one other question I wanted to ask was, and you may not know this answer, what does it cost a practice to hire an associate, onboard the associate, and then have them leave after a year? What is the dollar amount that you think is attached to that from a practice perspective?
It's about $150,000 when it's all said and done.
Yep.
Doctor time, practice time, the loss of goodwill, the loss of team. I mean, so much goes wrong when that does not happen right. So yeah.
Got it. I figured it was pretty high. So how much do you think the team has to play a function in this? And why do I say that? Because some people do without getting the team involved. I mean, just like when you're selling your practice, you don't want your team to know that you're selling. But when you're hiring an associate, do you think you go to them and say, hey guys, do you think it's time to hire an associate? Would you like someone what type of personality do you like? How much involvement do you have with the team is really what I'm getting at here.
Yeah, great question. Well, how much should the team be involved? A lot. Because the team is at least half responsible for setting up this new associate for success because of all the things that they have to do. And they also need to believe in this person to be able to actually, if I can use the phrase, sell them to the patients with authenticity. And so I don't know if it's really sitting down and saying to the team, do you think it's time to bring in somebody? You could do that. I've got one practice owner that frankly sat down with him and said, I've been really thinking deeply about both my future and the future of the practice. And I realize it's time to bring somebody else in. But in order to do so, I need all of your help. And that's one of the most magic phrases in business. I need your help. And this is how I want your help. It's a client that we are working with actively right now, but we interviewed all the team members, asked them about 6 or 7 questions about the practice itself. A practice owner could do that themselves. All right. What you're trying to really get is a snapshot of the culture. Who's going to fit here and why? But then keep the team involved from there. Let them understand this is the avatar that we've created. This is who's going to fit here. And how do you feel about that? And then as you start to get through the process of actually interviewing and getting some final candidates, I think it's really important to have the team actually have a sit down with those candidate or candidates. Often we do it over lunch. It can be kind of informal. But it really boils down to, is this somebody that we think we're going to really get along with well? Do they meet our criteria? Are they going to become a huge addition to this practice? But the team's vital because in the end, it's not that doctor who's necessarily in the operatory who's going to make sure that associate succeeds. Now, there's obviously a huge element of that. But if the team isn't on board, it's almost a guarantee that it's not going to work out.
Interesting. How about market itself? I mean, you have different areas around the country. You have different types of dental schools. You have all these different things. They all learn something different. And then even for like expected compensation for the associate, I'm sure it's market dependent as well. So can you touch base on how important understanding the market is to this?
Yeah, it's vital. And you know what? Candidly, one of the easiest ways to do that is go online and is if you were looking for a job yourself and see what's out there. Because you can benchmark against what other type of ads are in your area and then have a real feel. And don't just look at the one-off ads, okay? Because you may have a DSO that's really desperate trying to find somebody, but get a general feel for who's out there and what they're offering so that you know that what it's going to take to be competitive.
So market does play a role in what the
market does play a role.
Is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that we do actively, is that we look at the market itself and try to come up with a really competitive offer that both the owner doctor feels good about and we know that the associates will be excited about.
For someone that's considering bringing on an associate, do you have any suggestions, ideas on perks that can convince someone to accept the job? I mean, there's certain things you can do to make the offer even better. So I'm curious, because people listening here, they say, I'm going to hire an associate myself. And obviously we know that happens all the time. What are some ideas that you've seen, or what are some thoughts that you have on making it a better opportunity for somebody looking, especially in more rural areas, because rural areas are much harder to hire somebody as an associate because then they've got to go to the rural area. So I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Well, there are tangibles and intangibles. The tangibles include like a signing bonus, a moving bonus, what you're going to actually end up paying as a percentage of collections or adjusted production for the associate. But they're also, what we find, Len, is fascinating. The intangibles almost seem to be even more important. There is an entire generation of dentists that are saying, I need mentoring. I want to be more educated in the whole craft of dentistry because dental school gave me the basics, but it wasn't enough to be able to succeed in private practice. So mentoring is a key thing that we find is really appealing to the candidates. Another thing that's appealing is for the practice to actually invest in their CE. We recommend a 50-50 match up to like $5,000 a year. They kick in $1, you kick in $1. Just make sure that we're both on the same page in terms of what type of CE you're going to go for first. You know, if somebody's just coming out of dental school and they think, oh man, I want to do implants, time out. Nope, that's not going to be the place you're going to do your first CE. We want to make sure that you've got the bread and butter pieces down effectively and well so that you can continue to climb this ladder of clinical success.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Now, somebody is listening to this. They maybe have hired somebody. They've had issues with the associate left, or they are having their associate leave and they have to go through the process all over again. Can you talk about what is the process in hiring someone to help you, guide you through this process and help make the hiring process a little bit easier on the practice?
Well, if, again, what is the process? Be really crystal clear up front. Who is going to fit? Then use those characteristics to continue to interview, survey, talk to references, etc. If they want, however, to hire a guide to be able to help them with this, because candidly, if you do it right, it takes about 100 hours of time to pull this off, to be able to do what I said at the beginning, to keep your head in the game instead of just have your heart make the decision, which we've seen 75% of the time isn't working. And so they just need to contact us. We're happy to have a consult to be able to, A, determine, are they ready numerically? B, are they ready emotionally? All right. And C, are they ready in terms of how their systems and practice is running? And then from there, we sit down and have a conversation about what it could look like and what our guarantees are.
Sounds really good. Sounds really good to me. So, Bob, is there anything that we have not discussed yet that you want to cover? I know we covered a wide range of things, but is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to mention?
Well, Len, thank you. We're passionate about this because if I can just rewind for a minute, the thing that caught me off guard about dentistry when I was, this is how long ago, 16, 17 years ago. I was consulting in medicine after I'd had these CEO gigs. I found I was good at it, but there was no heart. And then I just happened to have a friend of a friend introduce me to a dental consultant, a guy named Larry Winterstein, who'd been at it 35 years. Larry showed me dentistry at a whole nother level, understanding the game and really how to play the game successfully. And that it is obviously a highly technical, clinical business, but there are all these elements of leadership and teamwork and expert systems and really great communication that just makes a practice successful. And so when I saw that, I jumped into consulting and I've loved it ever since. But I realized after about a couple of years, there's this foundational element that has to be in place, and that is that you've got to have doctors who are both confident and competent, that like each other, that get along well, and can succeed together. I personally believe, even though there's still a lot of private practice, solo doc practices in the industry, that regardless of what happens on the corporate side, that more and more practices will become multi-doc practices. It just makes sense in terms of economics, economies of scale, the ability to go on vacation, etc. So this is something that we've got to get right as a profession. Because if we don't, it's just going to continue to create this huge point of frustration for the owners, but also for the doctors that are coming into this from dental school or from residencies or even jumping out of DSOs. It's amazing to me how many associates I talk to and interview, and my team does, that literally feel betrayed by dentistry within about a year. Because there was this whole image of what it was going to be like and what they're going to end up doing, and instead they're doing hygiene in a DSO and barely making their minimums if they're even doing that. All right. So we're passionate about it. We've got 2 guarantees associated with this if you choose to hire a guide like us. One is we don't stop until we find the right person. Number 2, if we happen to find the wrong person, if you happen to be in that 15%, there was some skeleton that we didn't quite ferret out, we're going to go find the next person for free. Okay, we're that committed to this model and so committed to private practice dentistry because we honestly believe this is one of the biggest Achilles heels that we've got to get taken care of. And that is, how do we replicate doctors successfully so private practices can continue to grow successfully?
I think that's great. Great way to end the content portion. We're going to switch now to our lightning round Q&A. So I'm going to ask you some questions here. Just answer them as quickly as you can. You don't have to go into long-winded answers. So question number 1, do you believe there is some sort of pattern or formula to becoming successful?
Yes, I do. Pattern and formula would be to find the intersection of your knowledge, your experience, and passion. That becomes your sweet spot. Stay there, play there. You no longer have a job, you have a calling.
Okay. What do you do when things aren't working well? Do you have any weird tricks for overcoming roadblocks?
Yeah, going on walks.
Okay.
Trying to utilize that right side of the brain. So often it's that left side that says, it's not working. And you just got to let that go for a minute and let the right side, sometimes it's going in nature, it's going on walks, it's going on bike rides, but just let go for a little bit.
Okay.
And then it's amazing what will happen as you start to come up with new ideas.
All right. What habits have helped make you successful?
Honestly, my morning routine, I think has contributed more than anything in terms of exercise, reading faith literature, just having a chance to plan my day, and then being able to execute. Those mornings make all the difference to me.
Yeah, one of the first things I do in the morning, believe it or not, is I play word games. So there's the New York Times word games, and there's
the Wordle. Mm-hmm.
The Wordle. I do Wordle. I do the connections. I do the mini crossword puzzle, and then I do a game called Not Words, KNOT words.
Okay, yeah,
cool. I have a daily puzzle and a classic puzzle that I do every day. So I spend the first 15, 20 minutes getting my mind working. It really helps me get my day going on. So I've been doing it for 2 or 3 years straight. I don't miss. So it's just part of my routine. I created successful habits that way. So do you keep a journal, and does it help you?
Do I keep a journal? Absolutely. Does it help me? Completely. When I have to really de-junk my heart, that journal is something that's so valuable, and I hope nobody ever opens up and reads after I die.
All right. How do you define success?
Fulfilling your calling. There are lots of other metrics that you can use, but if you are fulfilling your calling, your reason for being here, I believe that's success.
All right, that's good. Who would you love to collaborate with, and what would you love to collaborate on?
I would love to collaborate with some hygiene schools and really start to crack open this nut as to how we can get more hygiene graduates out into the market. Because what statistics have shown is we've got 30% more dental schools in the past 20 years, and we have no more hygiene schools. And that's becoming a real pinch point within the industry, as everybody knows.
Got it. What motivates you on a daily basis?
Faith. To be candid, faith. And my clients, I love my clients. I am so grateful for some of the presentations at some meetings that said, when you got a great client because they give you energy, and when you have a bad one because they suck it all out of you. And if they do that, time to show them another door. All
right. A couple more questions. What business-related book has inspired you the most, or what is your favorite book?
Business-related 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. My mentor's mentor was Stephen Covey, and that book to me is like the Bible.
Okay. When you were a kid, what was the first thing you wanted to be when you grew up?
An astronaut.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And the last question, I ask everybody this question. Okay.
Yeah.
And the question is, what is one subscription, either business or personal subscription service, that you can't live without?
The Wall Street Journal.
I'm assuming online.
Yeah, it is online. But yeah, the Wall Street Journal for sure. For me, I'm a news junkie, and I love what they have to do.
Wall Street Journal works great. So it's
Okay,
online.
cool.
Perfect.
Cool.
Something
Let's
you
do with Wall Street
pay
Journal.
for.
There we go.
Works great. So Bob, that was awesome. Thank you so much. What is the best way for someone to reach out to you if they want to bring an associate in and want to potentially hire you for assistance doing that?
Thank you. Best way to get a hold of us is they can email me at bob@spielconsulting.com. I still utilize my practice management email a lot more than I do my Dentist Partner Pro email. It's just bob@spielconsulting, S as in Sam, P as in Peter, IEL, consulting, all one word.com. They can text me, frankly, at 208-520-6900. I'm happy to take texts from doctors. I love it when they've got a need and they reach out, and we're very, very responsive to get back to them and find out what's happening. And they can also fill out a form at dentistpartnerpros.com. And that's a contact us form, and my team will get back to you. So I've got 5 very, very talented professionals that are very committed to helping practices solve this problem.
Got it. And then I think you had an offer you wanted to throw out to those listening in case they wanted to reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. For the first 5 that reach out to us after this podcast, and again, easiest way, I think, frankly, is just text me at 208-520-6900. We'd love to be able to do a practice analysis of readiness for free. That's usually $1,000 value, but we will do that for you for as a friend of Len's, they're a friend of ours.
And then just repeat your email and your cell phone number one more time.
You bet. Yeah, bob@spielconsulting.com. And Spiel Consulting is spelled S as in Sam, P like in Peter, IEL, consulting, all one word.com. It's a German word, which means play or game. And we all know it. That's my spiel. And then phone number is 208-520-6900.
Awesome. This was great. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise on this episode of the Raving Patients podcast. If you're listening to it and you think someone could benefit from hearing Bob, please share the podcast with them. Please ask them to subscribe. If you like the episode, please review us. Remember, we come out Fridays at 5 a.m. I've been doing this. We're almost in season 8 now. It's hard to believe.
Wow.
I've released a ton of content out there. So I'm glad we were able to hook back up here, Bob, and share your story and get people interested in potentially helping shut the associate revolving door. Remember my event, Supercharge Your Dental Practice, September 26th and 27th at Pier 66 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Speakers to be released shortly. And as I end every single one of my podcasts, remember, your reputation matters. Until the next episode, thank you so much for joining me today. And Bob, thank you so much for being a wonderful guest. And we'll talk to everyone soon.